I just wanted to put out a few housekeeping notes here. If you have questions, as many of you have already seen in our ReadyTalk console here, please type them into the chat window. We have some process improvement experts as well as sales representatives from Minitab on the line with us today. And we'll do our best to answer your questions through chat as they come up. We're also hoping to have some time at the end of the hour here to take more questions that might be good for our presenter to share in front of the entire audience over audio. We'll stay on for some Q&A at the end of the hour as well. And we'll be sending you the slide deck and a recording after today's presentation too, so you can review those at any time that you like. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with us, I wanted to also say a few words about Minitab. For over 40 years, Minitab has been the leading provider of quality improvement software. That includes some of our key products here, such as Minitab Statistical Software, which has been used in implementing countless improvement initiatives around the world. We also have Quality Trainer, an online statistics teacher with animated lessons and hands-on exercises. And finally, we have Companion by Minitab, which you'll see while learning our 5 critical tools for your lean deployment today. Distinguished companies and organizations that rely on Minitab software and services include Ford, the Army's Lean Six Sigma program, Bridgestone, and Xerox, just to name a few. We're also showing some other companies across the screen here, and you can see case studies on minitab.com detailing these and several other companies we work with. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our presenter today, Bonnie Stone. Bonnie is one of our lean experts at Minitab. She spent much of her career at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, working on the shuttle launch program in the quality and engineering departments. In 2002, they started their Lean Six Sigma deployments, and she earned her black belt, and shortly afterward, her master black belt and project management professional certifications. Before joining Minitab, Bonnie also spent several years working as a consultant in healthcare, as well as in insurance and manufacturing. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Bonnie.
Thanks, Evan, and hello, everyone. As Evan said, I worked several years at Kennedy Space Center, and our process improvement deployment was challenging to say the least. One tool I wish we had was Companion by Minitab, and the reason is as follows. We had different tools, different software, and even different versions of different software. We had multiple centers that we were coordinating with, Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and several other NASA centers. We had our files stored everywhere and all the different types of software that you can imagine. When I look back on my years working on the shuttle launches and consulting, I think of how the Companion by Minitab desktop app would have helped us to execute projects by streamlining our data into one comprehensive format and style. And the online dashboards would have helped us report it to the stakeholders on a timely basis. More on that later, though. I'll start off the webinar by explaining a bit about Lean methodology, what it focuses on, and how it works. Then I'll walk you through my 5 critical tools for your Lean deployment. Then I'll go over them and demonstrate how you can use them in the Companion by Minitab app. You will see they build off each other, so if you're unfamiliar with these tools and you're considering using these in a project you are planning, I would recommend working them in the order they are presented here. Finally, we're going to talk about sustaining your processes. It's imperative to maintain the fruits of your labor. Centralized management tools can help practitioners and stakeholders alike. They can turn to the one source of truth on the progress of their projects. So first off, I'd like to give everyone a bit of background on Lean. Lean, which is also known as Lean Manufacturing or Lean Production, focuses on maximizing the value to your customer while removing waste and eliminating defects. Lean tools help us to understand the process, look for waste, prevent mistakes, and document what was done. Here's a quick look at the 5 tools I'll be discussing today: the voice of the customer, process maps, value stream map, 5 Whys, and finally the 5S audit tool. 5S stands for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. I'll show you how Lean tools can help you capture and document the changing needs of customers, as we see here with the voice of the customer. Lean tools can also help you design a process around customer expectations with process maps and value stream maps. And finally, critical Lean tools can help you audit and optimize your processes, as we see here with the 5 Whys form and 5S audit. So let's dive deeper into how these tools work and why they're used. We're going to start with tool number 1, Voice of the Customer, or VOC. The Voice of the Customer tool consists of 2 forms, the plan and the summary. The plan helps you get started by guiding you with questions about who your customer is, what you want to find out, how to frame your questions, and how you're going to collect that data. After you've collected the data, you can use the summary tool to display customer feedback. After seeing it all at once like this, you can more easily identify key customer issues and ascertain the requirements that will address them. Again, the forms help you gather key questions, collect data, and record customer segments. Collecting the voice of the customer is a critical step, mainly because it helps you redesign your process to meet and hopefully exceed your customer expectations. Then the feedback you work through leads you to answer important questions and use that information to draw conclusions and develop next steps. Overall, working with the voice of your customer will help you accomplish key business goals. Now I'll switch to Companion and show you the desktop app. We're going to access the Voice of the Customer forms. For the purposes of this demo today, I'm going to show a project I'm working on. If I wanted to create a new Voice of the Customer plan, I would click the Insert tab and then click Form. And then I can scroll through this list of forms to find the one I'm looking for, or I can simply search for the VOC form. So I'm going to show you a form that I've already started, the VOC plan. Let's pretend we're a textbook publisher and we want people to buy more of our books. But we notice there seems to be an issue with the ordering process. When I create the form, my project name is auto-populated as Buy More Books because of the data connection feature available in Companion. I can connect data fields, so when I enter values on a connected field, the new field is automatically updated throughout the project. For data fields that are not connected, I would enter that information, for example, the prepared by, prepared date, and participants. And the reason I enter these is because they're not connected fields like this project name. So when I asked who is the customer, my team said, anyone who wants to purchase a book from our company. For what we want to know, I would say, we want to reduce customer complaints and send orders in a more timely manner. Then we went with some simple questions that we would want to ask. You can see here in the notes that you can frame your questions. You just want to make sure that you aren't leading people to a specific type of answer when asking these questions. So we'll just say, what is it that you dislike about purchasing from our company? And you can see below, you can record more planning around the sources of data, sampling, time frame, and you can even link to related documents. So now let's look at the Voice of the Customer summary. You can see many of the same fields across the top. We've got the project name, the prepared by date, and I'd already filled these out earlier. So now we're ready to start adding our feedback that we received to this form. In the Who is the Customer column, we said, anyone who wants to purchase a book from our company. Then we document what the customer stated about our company. In this case, they said that every time they place an order with our company, a customer service rep calls to get additional information. This is getting annoying and delays the shipment. From that, we seek to understand the customer's issue. In this case, they want to be able to place the order and have it processed by the company at that time, the first time. Their second issue is that we call them back to collect additional information to process the book order. From there, we have two customer requirements identified. Number one, all the necessary information should be captured on the order form. And number two, no phone calls by the customer service rep to collect additional information to process the book. So now let's go back to our PowerPoint and look at the next critical tool, Process Maps. You can see here that I have an example of the scenario we've been walking through for the book publishing company. Process maps can help you understand and communicate the activities or steps in a process. As you can see, one of the main advantages is that they give a very visual representation of the process. Because the process is easier to visualize in this format, process maps help you to see the relationship between the inputs, or the dependent X variables, and the outputs, the dependent Y variables. With that in front of you, you can more easily identify key areas where you need to make decisions and highlight the best opportunities for improving the process. One more note, because this tool allows people to clearly see a process, it is most effective to build these with a team working in the process. They would have very close knowledge of the steps involved and where work is needed. Let's go back to Companion. The setup here is very similar to Visio. I'll insert a process map. It's very similar to Visio. You click on a shape and then add it to the workspace. And it has these arrows that allow you to automatically add additional shapes. And so if you click the arrows above or below, that allows you to add the predefined shapes. You can also use different shapes and colors to visually display which teams or positions are responsible for the steps in the process. You can also double-click these arrows and in between the shapes and label the different scenarios as yes or no. Now we have looked at process maps. Let's take it further and advance to the next tool, tool number 3, the value stream map. A value stream is a collection of activities that generate a product or service required to meet customer needs. We use the value-added steps in the process as the backbone of the value stream map, which is here. Value-added steps are anything that changes the form, fit, or function of the process and are done right the first time. Think, if you stopped doing this step, would your customer notice? If so, it's probably a value-added step. Non-value-added steps are steps that are happening in the process but create no value for the customer. These are the things that must be completed to reduce business financial risk or involve reporting obligations such as regulations and taxes, where they support the value-added work. Or they can be in a category of pure waste. It adds cost or time but adds no value to anyone. If you stop doing them and no one notices, they're probably non-value added. The great thing about value stream maps is that they extend the data of the process map. You can see the material and information flow, for instance, defect rates or cycle times. And value stream maps model the idea of continuous improvement well, because the value stream map of the current state helps you identify waste and helps you and your team envision an improved state. Once you do the work to improve the current state so that it more closely resembles the future state that you envisioned, you can start over again. The future state becomes current state, and you're working towards another improved future state. So we'll go back to Companion, and I'll show you the value stream map. For the sake of time, I won't create a completed value stream map, but I can show you where to get started. Similar to the process map, we hit Insert, and then we use the shortcut to add the value stream map. You can start a value stream map from scratch, or you can start with a 4-step or a 7-step process, depending on all that's involved. So there's 4 parts of this tool. The work area, which is here, displays the multiple steps in the value stream. We have the timeline down here and the summary box that contains the values Companion generates as you fill in the values for the process and inventory shapes. We have the customer demand box up here, and it generates the customer demand or takt time of the process based on the information that you've loaded. And over here is the task pane. And this is where you can enter or modify the values for the map. So if I clicked on a particular shape, then I can customize the information about that particular shape. Starting in the task pane, you can use the Map tab to enter the number of hours in a shift, hours in the number of shifts in a day, the hours of operation, etc. And plugging in accurate data will calculate the time required to create the product or service that you're providing. You can add data in the process shape in the task pane as well, and it will appear near the shape or on the timeline. And you can see the data here near the shape, and then it is also down here on the timeline. The total cycle time appears above the line, which is here, the 120 seconds, and the value added cycle time is below it. The timeline summary box begins to fill in at the same time, and this is the summary box. Similar to the process map controls, you can also enter shapes here, such as different modes of transportation or a Kaizen burst. And I'll add a Kaizen burst for you. So now that we've mapped our process and value stream, let's switch back to some more analysis tools. With your overall view generated in the last couple of tools, you can dive into some root cause analysis. The 4th tool is the 5 whys form. This is very common, not just in Lean, but in Six Sigma and other methodologies as well. Often activities are completed at the wrong time or skipped altogether, and that's when you get process problems. You ask repeatedly why, and you can uncover the problem's root cause. You can also find relationships between different root causes and different steps to prevent the problem from happening again. And remember, the root cause will most likely point to a process that does not work well. As Dr. Edward Deming said, 85% of the reasons for failures are deficiencies in the system rather than the employee. I quote that here because most of the time people do not fail, processes do. Let's go back to Companion, and I'll show you my 5 whys form. We're back in the buy more books scenario with disgruntled customers getting hassled by customer service reps each time they complete an order, and we've entered the problem. The data book, we've entered the problem, which is here. The book order cannot be entered into the database. To use the 5 whys tool, you simply state the problem and then ask why. You keep asking why until it no longer makes sense to ask why. Eventually, your why question will point to a process, policy, or person. And when you get to this, oftentimes a solution is obvious. So let's get started. Why couldn't the book order be entered in the database? Well, it's because some information is missing. But that's not a root cause. So let's ask, so why was the information missing? Well, the customer did not provide the necessary information. Again, not a root cause. So why did the customer not provide it? because the order form did not ask for it. So why did the order form not ask for it? Because the order form is missing some fields. So the customer does not even get prompted to provide this information. So that sounds like a good root cause, and it's pointing to a gap in our process. Then we can log possible solutions, and it's pretty straightforward from here. We need to edit the form to add the fields to capture all the necessary information when a customer places the order. In this case, the root cause is something within our control. If we discover a root cause that's not in our control to fix, we need to brainstorm solutions to minimize the effects when the problem occurs. Let's go back to PowerPoint, and we'll look at our last tool, the 5S audit. Again, the 5S stands for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain, and is a powerful tool to achieve workplace organization and standardization. After implementing 5S, we can ask ourselves the questions on the 5S audit form to help maintain our clean, well-organized workplace. Remember, a clean, well-organized workplace improves efficiency and eliminates waste. In my experience, the fifth step, sustain, is the most challenging. Sustaining the results of 5S is similar to what they say about dieting. Keeping the weight off is even more difficult than losing it in the first place. Sustaining requires maintaining the gains of process improvements on a regular basis. When we don't sustain, old habits resurface, and the workplace falls back into disarray. So we'll go back to Companion, and I'll open the 5S audit form. And you can see the audit asks a standard set of questions for each of the areas in the 5S process. So this is sort, set in order, and so forth. And as you answer the questions, the Companion crunches the numbers at the bottom and tells you which areas are succeeding and which areas need more improvement. And it shows you in both the numerical format and then visually in a bar chart. We'll go back to PowerPoint. So those are the 5 critical tools. You see them again: Voice of the Customer, Process Map, Value Stream Map, the 5 Whys, and the 5S Audit. I hope I've given you a better understanding of how you would progress with using them throughout the course of your project. Now I'd like to spend a little time focusing on Sustain. As I mentioned about Sustain when we were just reviewing the 5S, it's one of the hardest steps to accomplish. Let's talk about why. As I mentioned, one big problem I experienced working on the shuttle program was the lack of a standard tool set. We had multiple software solutions bought by different teams, and as times went by, the software stack grew and was nearly impossible to track. It became very difficult to manage and make changes, as well as create an organized and standardized deployment. The tools in place didn't support program governance. Finally, I had this, and I find this to be the most important: the stakeholders lack timely, high-level information. This is a byproduct of all that we just discussed, and it ties it all together. A stakeholder should not have to wait on the reporting to be aggregated and sent up the chain. Information should be available on demand for making key decisions. For example, in my deployment, reporting was due 1 week after the close of the month. It took a week to aggregate the data and compile it into reports and useful metrics, and then it was distributed. By then, it was the middle of the month, and the stakeholders were just now finding out how last month went. There's not much time to make process adjustments because timely metrics are not available on demand. Reporting on and sustaining the gains of your process improvement does not need to be that difficult anymore. And that's one of the advantages I find with Companion by Minitab's web app and dashboard. The Companion dashboard delivers customizable real-time reporting on your entire improvement program, so you never again have to waste hours aggregating project data. It acts as your one source of truth. Everyone in your deployment can have visibility to your process improvement, from the practitioners to the stakeholders and managers. The project data rolls up to the dashboard automatically so that you can track key indicators and view projects from anywhere. You can have multiple reports, as you can see here, to show different aspects of your deployment. So let's look at the dashboard. In the desktop application, that's where we had the project execution happening. Practitioners would work on the project, and the new data rolls up automatically to the dashboard. As your teams progress and solve problems, you can see the impact on your KPIs right on the dashboard. This web application is where the template standardization and visibility happen. The dashboard is customizable and configurable, so you can feature the information most important to you. Basically, you have real-time access to your pre-configured reports that's pulling directly from your projects on a real-time basis. We have reports and tables up here in this area. And we have sections where we can add the graphs and tables to show us what's going on with our deployment. And the practitioners can work on their projects. They keep it current throughout the life of their project, and it's instantly loaded in the dashboard where management and others can access this information on demand, not weeks later when the data is manually compiled into reports. You can have several dashboards and toggle between them. You can see here. And they contain different projects and summarize different information. This area here allows for filtering. It allows me to make changes to the dashboard to include or not include projects based on their relevancy to me. So here on this filter, it's a status filter, and right now it's set just to show the completed project. But if I was the deployment champion and I was interested in seeing all the projects, I can change this filter, select all, click update, and now it will refresh the dashboard and show me all the projects that are in this deployment. The action bar allows me to edit the report. I can create a new report or copy the report or edit. It would take me to the sandbox where I would edit my version of the report. And when the background is blue, it tells me I'm editing as opposed to the view that everyone gets, which is the white background. The action bar after finishing my customizations, I can also exit to the edit mode. If I want to send a PDF report at any time, it's just 2 clicks. I go to the actions and I click Export, Save as a PDF. And it will create a PDF of my dashboard, and then I can email it to, and you can see it's down here, and I can email this to anybody that I would like. So let's go back to PowerPoint. With timely metrics like that in a PDF report, with timely metrics like this in the PDF report, you can see how sustaining the updated processes is much simpler. With Companion by Minitab, it becomes easier to work projects. Project execution becomes more efficient, and reporting and visibility becomes more effortless as well. So I thank you for your time today. I hope this was informative for you and that these 5 tools will help you and your team with your process improvement. With that, I'll hand it back to Evan. Well, I will just talk a little bit more about these slides. I'd like to point out a few additional resources that you can look into with your research. On our website, we have some short videos that will walk you through several of the tools, such as the value stream maps, process maps. You'll find these on the minitab.com/support. and then go to the video section. You'll also see training opportunities, other webinars available on demand, and on our blog you can also find 5 more of my critical tools that will, for your lean deployment, as well as other how-to content and thought leadership. You can see this one is here.
Thanks, Bonnie. Sorry, sorry, Bonnie, coming in a little bit late on there. I think I was on mute earlier.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
I'll let you take over from here and talk about the Minitab event.
Great. Thank you so much. And great job. Thanks for presenting those tools today. So also, if you head to minitab.com/events here, you'll see some of the trade shows and events where we present and participate. And here are just a few of the ones we'll be at in 2018, including OPEX Week in Orlando, Florida, and ASQ Lean Six Sigma in Phoenix, Arizona. So please stop by Minitab's booth if you have any questions. We'd love to meet you, and if you have any questions or if you'd just like to talk about quality improvement with us. And I also wanted to mention that you can download a 30-day free trial for Companion by Minitab on our website. So you can get started today, right now, while this is fresh on your mind. For 30 days, you'll have the full functionality that we've shown here today. And you can always contact sales@minitab.com if you'd like a guided demo or your own sort of private follow-up webinar as well. Now, it looks like we have plenty of time for questions here. So let me just go over here and see what we have from, let's see, Jose, Bonnie. Jose has asked, does Minitab Companion have more tools than those 5 that you've presented today?
Well, that's a good question, and that gives me an opportunity to showcase these tools. If you go back to Companion and select the Insert tab, you can select Form, and I'll show you all the tools. We have Forms, Analysis Capture, our Process and Value Stream Map, the Fishbone, CT Tree, and we also have a Monte Carlo simulation tool. And you can scroll through and see the standard forms that come shipped with Companion. So there's more than 100 tools here that are available for you to use in your project. There's the analysis capture tools while I'm on the topic and we have plenty of time. I'll just get to the bottom of this. There we go. So those are all the forms and tools. The analysis capture tools are unique in that it allows you to take, for example, your ANOVA results from Minitab, if you did an analysis in Minitab, and because we want you to have all the information that's associated with your project in this one Companion file, we have these analysis capture tools. So you would load the information about your ANOVA analysis from Minitab or some other software, and you'd be able to add that information right here. And there's a spot where you can add graphs so that you can see the different graphs that are associated with your analysis. That was a very good question. Thank you for asking it and giving me the opportunity to show you a little more about Companion.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. Let's see, we have another question here. And also I want to remind everybody, we do also have sales representatives, including Jeff Adams from Minitab on the line. So he's answering some of your questions in the chat here. If you don't hear them out loud, be sure to pay attention to the chat. And we'll be following up with with people who ask questions later on as well. So on to the next question, Bonnie, Marcus is asking, does Companion automatically provide these VOC templates, or do you have to build them yourself?
And that's another good question. These tools come pre-populated, the ones that I showed you here. They're all pre-configured forms. And if something is not exactly as you want it to be, you can use the design mode. You can go into the design mode here and make any changes to this that you want. So these are all configurable fields various different types of controls that you can add depending on the kind of form that you would like to create or edit. So you can have text fields where you type text. Here's a drop-down where you can select. Here's another drop-down. The date, if you can add the date picker and you can select the date. So there's a variety of different controls that you can add to the form to improve your ability to collect and log information about your project. Okay.
Great. Thanks so much, Bonnie. Another question we have coming in from Austin. Can you import a previously created process map into the project that you're working on?
Yes, you can. When you go to the blank, if you started a blank process map, you could take shapes from a different process map, select them, and paste them directly into this workspace. Or you could insert a related document. So for example, if you had a Visio file, you could attach that related document and have it stored in your process map. You might need to make it a PDF file, but you can add related documents here using this dialog box. You can also link to a web page if you have some external information that you're interested in having available to your team, for example. So you can link both a hard copy document. You could link to it on your shared drive so that when it changes on the shared drive, you'll always be able to have access to the current information, or you can attach a web page. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Thanks, Bonnie. Let's see. Some other good ones here. How can you use the VSM to reduce lead time? Mauricio is asking this. In your example, the customer voice was to have quick deliveries. And they wanted to know, how do you know which activities are adding value or still could be optimized? So if you could talk us through that a little bit, Bonnie.
Sure. It's interesting, value stream maps at first are just so overwhelming to look at. And once you've created a couple of them, it gets a little bit easier to read a value stream map. So the symbols are available in Companion are the typical symbols that industry uses for value stream maps. We have a variety of the symbols up here that you can use. We've got the connector shapes, we've got the pull arrow, the push arrows, and things like that. So once you create your value stream map, then you look at it. And here's an example. In the sales process, we have the total cycle time for conducting a sales activity is 4 minutes, of which 3 minutes is considered value add time. So we can see the 4 minutes over the 3 minutes. And there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for improvement there. There's only a small difference. But if you look at, like for example, the inventory, there's 1,000 orders that are in backlog here using this inventory. So if we can do something to improve the fulfillment process, for example, if we can make this step faster, and you can see the total cycle time is 120 seconds, but the value add time is only 30 seconds. So there's a bigger opportunity to improve here. There's 90 seconds of non-value added activities going on. So we could dig in, do another process map of the fulfillment step, and see if there's anything that we can do to eliminate some of that non-value added activity and time. And when we make this step faster, we'll be able to process this inventory faster, and we'll be able to get the orders to the packing department and then to the shipping department faster. So being able to read the process, the value stream map after you've filled it up, you're looking for opportunities for improvement. So whenever you see values like cycle time is 2 minutes, but there's only a half a minute of value-added time, that's an opportunity to say, hey, there's something going on in the shipping department. What can we do that would speed it up? How can we get rid of that non-value-added activity and make that part of the process faster? Now, the voice of the customer that we heard was that when they were placing the orders, that was a problem. So we would need to dig into the ordering process and figure out what we can do to improve that as well. So those are the kinds of things that you would want to look for in a current state process map. Inventory that's excessive, big differences between value add time and total cycle time, indicating there's a lot of waste going on. You could also track defects whenever, if we wanted to track, like for example, in the order fulfillment, if there were some do-overs, they fulfilled it incorrectly, and at the very end, when they were packing, they realized that they missed a book, for example, and it had to go back to fulfillment. So we could look at defects as well. And those are the kinds of things that we're looking for in a value stream map. So hopefully that answered your question.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. While we're on the value stream maps and process maps, let me know, we can follow up offline if necessary. But and I think you covered this for a moment earlier on process maps. Is it important, or is it possible to import files from other platforms such as Visio into Companion by Minitab?
And that would again be using the related documents. That's where you would add a hard copy of the file. And when you add something like that, it actually shows up in your roadmap here as a clickable link so that you'd have access to it at any time. So there's a variety of different types of documents that you could add.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's see. Switching back to VOC, we have a good question here. What are the ways that people collect voice of the customer?
Oh, that's a good question, and there's a variety of ways. If you use the VOC plan, it helps you think of ways in which you can collect data. There's a difference between proactive data and reactive data. Proactive data are the kinds of things where you're going to go out and collect data that you don't currently have. You could conduct a survey. You could invite your customers in for a focus group. You could get information from your sales team based on their visits. You can look at social media and see if there's some information that you can capture that would be voice of the customer. You could also access any data that you currently have, which we call reactive data. So if a customer calls and wants to talk to the customer service rep, they hopefully will create a log entry for that phone call. So you could look at the logs for your customer service calls or your tech support calls. Of course, complaints are always an excellent source for voice of the customer information because they usually don't pull any stops, and they tell you exactly what's upsetting them. You could look at your web page and so forth, warranty claims, any products that were returned. So these are some ideas of how you could collect data. And then also in this form, you would identify who would be collecting that, who's the best person to capture this information, and then how frequently are you going to collect the voice of the customer. Because as we know, once you fix one problem, then another problem pops up. So the voice of the customer is constantly changing. And of course you have a variety of customers, so you would want to look at your customer base and then divide them into segments so you can truly understand what's going on with the different segments within your customer base. So hopefully that answered that question.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. We have a couple of good kind of related questions coming in here. Let's see. around our Minitab statistical software, actually. So if you're executing an analysis on Minitab, how can you link them into the project notebook of Companion?
Okay. Well, first of all, you can't link them. All you can do is perform your analysis in Minitab and then add it to your Companion. So you would need to collect the information from your analysis in Minitab, the objective, what your conclusion was, and then you would add the details about the analysis. And then here you can copy and paste your graph directly into this Companion spot where we have the interval plot, the main effects, the interaction plot, for example, if those are plots that you performed, and then your diagnostic information, and then your observations, and then next steps. And so it just really helps the project become a complete package by including your Minitab information.
Great. Thank you. Another question we had around, can you convert all the analysis into PowerPoint?
You can copy and paste. You can right-click and export to PDF as well. So here's an example, and you would save it, and then you would have your PDF. But it has the capability of copying and pasting directly into PowerPoint. So you can't convert it directly to PowerPoint. Good question.
Great. Thanks. Then going more tactical, the 5S audit here, how would an auditor use that form on the floor? Would they take the laptop with them, or how do they, if you have some information about how they would enter that information, say, straight from the floor?
That's a good question. And then, of course, it depends on your process and whether or not you would have access to a tablet, for example. Because once the project is, if you wanted to save it on a shared drive, then anybody could access that particular project. So you would want to have the project on some kind of portable device like a laptop or a tablet, and you can use that to perform your 5S audit.
Great. Thanks. Then another question we have here, how flexible is Companion to adjusting to the taxonomy of an organization? For example, defining the business units, individual P&Ls, accounts, targets, approvers, etc. If you could talk a little bit about that, Bonnie.
Okay. Both the desktop app and the web app are highly customizable and configurable. I showed you what the design looks like for the forms. So if you wanted to change this rating scale, you could. If you wanted to create a formula, for example, you can. There's just so much flexibility on these forms themselves. So whatever you can dream up, you should be able to create in terms of a form or a tool in the Companion desktop. In the web app, it's very easy to create, and you go into the design. This is kind of getting deep into the details, a little past just the lean tools, but I'll just show you very briefly how this works. It'll take just a few seconds to load. But you have the individual data fields that you want available to you on your Companion forms and available in tools. Here are the data fields. And these are all of the data fields that are currently available in my version of Companion. And you can see I've done some customization to it. This technical details is a single value category that I added because I wanted to collect certification information. This is a list field, and I was able to identify the certifications that I'm interested in collecting. So this is a purely customized field that I created for my version of the companion. You can also, the templates are also loaded here. So this is where you would control the templates. And I created a new template. This one is the 5S template. It doesn't ship with Companion, so it's a brand new template that I created. But if you wanted to customize any of the other ones, I'll let that load. If you wanted to customize any of the other ones, you could. Here are the management forms, the project today, which you saw. And it loads the form so that I will have access to it. I'll go back to, I have to log in. And I have a lot of trials. So while that's loading. So now I can go into the project today and make edits. If I had the full version, then the data architects would be the ones that would make the changes in this form. And when I saved it and deployed it or published the changes, then everybody in my deployment would have access to this new form. So I edit in what we call the Sandbox template editor. It's a safe duplicate copy of your subscription, and it allows the data architects to make any changes without interrupting the live environment. They can do whatever, practice, play around, do some what-if scenarios, and come up with the best form. And then when they're ready, they can publish, and everybody will see the forms. So it's very easy to make these changes in Companion, both the web app and the desktop. So hopefully I didn't get too much into the details for you.
No, I think that's great. We have a lot of good and curious questions ranging from very detailed to higher level on the line here. The next question from Bethlehem actually is DMAIC the only roadmap available?
Oh, that's a good question. No, it's not the only roadmap available. So when you go to New, these standard roadmaps, the CDAW for Design for Six Sigma, DMAIC, you could have a Just Do It project. We have a Kaizen template, Plan, Do, Check, Act. If you just have a project that you want to run and you want to define the phases, you can open up a blank template. And then we have a quality function deployment for the House of Quality and Design scorecards. So these are the ones that ship with Companion. I created a custom template. This is the DMADB, which is also a Design for Six Sigma template because there's a variety of those out there. So it comes with these standard roadmaps that are available for use right out of the box.
Great, thanks. Let's see, a few more questions here. Does the Quality Companion, and this might be something sales can follow up with one-on-one as well, let me know, we can take it offline. Does the Quality Companion 30-day offer trial extend to users or to the company? So do all users have the trial at the same 30-day time within the same company?
Hey, this is Jeff from Minitab Sales. I'll go ahead and take that one. And Evan, I put that one out there just because I thought there are a bunch of questions coming in with regard to this. So anybody can go to minitab.com and download the 30-day trial. As if an organization downloads a 30-day trial, with 10 users, let's say, that time clock will be the same for all 10 users. But as I said, individuals can go and download their own 30-day trial.
Great. Then also, and thanks, Jeff, Does software link the process maps to FMEA to control plans? That's one question we had on the line.
And I talked about that in terms of connecting data. That's a very good question. And behind the scenes, you can organize your forms so that you connect the data fields. And I mentioned that the project name is on multiple fields, and so you put it in, you put that information in once, and everywhere that the project name appears and it's connected, it will automatically add that information. And so up here, like if I go to the voice of the customer, back to the top, here's the buy more books, the summary also. Where it comes into play is in the process map. And let me grab this process map. You can create variables based on the information in your process map. So this could be an output variable, and I would create that. So now once I set this up as a variable, I would make it a Y variable. Then I can import that anywhere in any of the tools that I would want to add that input variable. So for example, if I created a fishbone, I could use that output variable as the head of the fish with the problem statement, or I could select input variables, entering the order in the database. I could add some input variables to that particular step, such as the number of fields. I could add the cycle time for that step, and then I can use it in other places. And the typical places where you would connect data, the process map, the fishbone, the cause and effect matrix, the failure modes and effects, the FEMA form. So those are connected using that data feature.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we have time probably just for a couple more questions here. From Cindy, we have, are the 5S audits customizable?
Yes, and I think I showed you that. You can take the 5S form, click into the design mode, and then you can make any changes that you want to the format of the form. And then in the fill out mode, these are all added rows. So if I wanted to add a new row, I could add it above, and then I can just add whatever additional item I want to check in the sort phase. And I can do that for any of these. So if there's something that I wanted to check, I can add a row below in the set in order, and I would add an additional row in this form. So
hey, Evan, this
helps.
is Jeff again. Just jumping in. We have had a great response in terms of number of questions, and we're obviously not going to be able to get to them all today. So for those of you that are still on the line and have asked a question that we haven't gotten to, we will certainly be following up to address your questions directly. So thanks for joining, and I just wanted to get that out there before you concluded, Evan.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks, Jeff. I had one more before I'll wrap it up here, and this might be more for you, Jeff. I saw someone ask they have an in-company version being locally installed, but no online dashboard option of Companion by Minitab. Is there a chance to use a trial? And if yes, how much time of the trial period do they have when they register for that trial?
Sure. So the trial that's available on Minitab.com is a full version trial, which will include the dashboard option. So you can go ahead and download and activate that trial, and you would have dashboard access for 30 days.
Great. And I think that's going to have to be our last question for today, being respectful of everybody's time. And thank you so much. As we had so many good questions here. As Jeff said, we'll be following up with everybody. If your question wasn't answered through chat or highlighted on our audio here, we'll definitely be following up with you. And on behalf of all of us at Minitab, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. We appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. And if you have another couple minutes, I want to remind you, we have a brief survey that appears right after we close out this webinar. So be on the lookout for that. We'd appreciate it if you could take the time to just answer those few questions. And one more reminder for anybody who was not able to make it today, or if you want to share this with your organization, we will be sending out a follow-up email where we'll be sharing this presentation as well as the recording video here. So, and again, on behalf of everybody from Minitab today, thanks again, and have a good day. Bye.